Hello and welcome to GNN, a weekly Fallout-themed podcast brought to you by Shoddycast, the makers of the Fallout lore, the Storyteller series, and Hidden History. I'm your host, Charles Battersby, and with me is my lovely co-host,
Austin Horrigan. Hello, and I am glad to see that you remember the name of our show this week.
Okay, so this week we're going to be talking about some of the hypothetical features that people have been wondering about, and a couple of interesting quotes that we've heard from the developers recently. So first, let's talk about skills and perks. We keep hearing that a perk system might replace the traditional skill system, or people even wonder if it's going to level up more akin to the way that Skyrim did, where using a skill levels it up rather than giving the player the option to just apply skill points wherever they like. So Austin, what do you think is going to happen?
I've thought long and hard about whether or not, especially whether or not it's going to level up in the Elder Scrolls fashion. I'm really, where you practice skills and they go up as you practice. I mean, on one hand, I'm a really huge fan of that play style. I think there's something really organic about it where you can just kind of play the game how you feel like playing, and your skills with your character kind of level up by doing stuff. So I do like the leveling by doing model. It feels there's something there always seemed to be this divide though between the way Fallout leveled and the way Elder Scrolls leveled that seemed almost necessary to keep them distinct, to keep it from being like Fallout being Skyrim with guns or something like that, or Oblivion with guns. But at the same time, if the formula works, I mean, why not?
Yeah, I've got to say, I've never really liked the way that Fallout did their skills, going even back to the original games. I felt that being able to just, click the button and level up a skill that your character has never used and, hoard those points and then, just suddenly now I'm really good at using energy weapons. It didn't really feel organic, and sometimes I felt like I was cheating, especially since I start a game and I know I'm not going to use the energy weapons until the last few missions, but I still tag that skill at the beginning, and then just suddenly, once I get the plasma rifle, all the points get dumped into that. And so it felt like it was easily exploited by the player. And also, having put hundreds of hours into Skyrim, I really like the way that they're using a combination of perks and learn by doing, so that, you have the option of diversifying those perks a little bit, where even though you are great with using heavy armor or using a one-handed weapon, you don't necessarily have to specialize with them just because you're using them a lot. And if you do want to be, the sneaky guy that runs around in heavy armor, you can successfully put you can level up your sneak skill and then put your perks into that. And still, if you happen to take damage while wearing heavy armor, you just happen to get some skill points in that too. And that's a system that I feel works very well, especially in the long haul game where you might start out with in Fallout specifically, you're using just the basic guns, but as you get further and further in your 100th, 150th hour, then you're going to be using heavy weapons and energy weapons a lot more, and you may never again pick up a pistol.
It's just like you say, there's this kind of weird disconnect where you could spend the entire game in Fallout shooting people in the head, and then you're putting all of your skill points into like speechcraft. And that just seems so counterintuitive. It is a good system. I know if they lean that direction, which the more I think about it, like before we started talking about it, I was kind of thinking that would not be the case. Now I feel more and more that is likely, because it's coming to my head that they've actually cited we're taking all things we learned from Skyrim and putting it into Fallout. And I think it would make a lot of people really upset and angry, but they just have to deal with it because people tend to not like change in their familiar systems, but overall It can be a really good thing.
Fallout never changes. And another thing to consider is player skill versus the character skill. I know that when I was in my 200th hour of Skyrim, having used the lockpick mini game in Fallout 3 and New Vegas and in Skyrim, it was different in Oblivion, but by the time Skyrim came around, I'd had 1,000 hours of practice using that lockpick, and it doesn't matter what skill level my character is, just all of them, even, the hardy warrior from the north that doesn't sneak or pick, they're all brilliant at picking those damn locks. And so for that, it just felt like there needed to be some little tweak done to it,
right.
Just to keep player skill from defining the character's skill.
And Fallout had that with its lockpicking, where there was just a hard limit that if it was too difficult of a lock, you just couldn't do it if you didn't have enough points.
Yes, and those of you that haven't played Skyrim removes that limitation, so that if you have a lockpick skill of 1 and you're on a super hard lock, you can actually do it if you, the player, are really good. So speaking of Fallout 4 being different, we had an interesting quote from Todd Howard, where he said that games that try to do a lot of stuff can sometimes try to do too much and end up not doing any of it well at all. And so with Fallout 4 having all these new mechanics, it's got the same stuff that Bethesda has been doing with world exploration and fighting and shooting and sneaking and lockpicking, but now they're adding in things like very extensive crafting and world building and base defense. There is a chance that they might be doing too much and the game won't be as good as people hope it is. So to roast a sacred cow, what's going to happen if the game just is too ambitious and it doesn't work?
I argue with myself about this all the time when I think about it, because on one hand, I look and I'm like, this game is going to have, all game has weaknesses. But I there's a part of me that thinks that the overambitiousness problem is unavoidable here. But at the same time, I don't think it's necessarily going to go the way of, say, Spore, which also tried to do everything and kind of became a blurry mess because of it. Since Bethesda's been gradually honing their game, like this specific genre and play style of game, that there's a chance that adding on all this extra stuff may not actually be all of that big of a deal, especially since they seem to be, people actually in our comment section were talking about this quite a bit, all of the incorporation of the different mods for New Vegas. They're almost working from a groundwork that's already there and concepts that are already proven. Which you also saw with the development of Kerbal Space Program, where with their final release, they actually incorporated a ton of features that people had been modding in throughout the development period. At the same time, I mean, Todd Howard did say in an interview, he said, yeah, we're probably doing too much. If the game sucks, the answer might be we tried to do too much. And that is like what he said. And I know he's trying to be kind of cheeky about it, but part of me is like, is he just warning us that this might be a thing?
There'll be riots out in front of all the Best Buys and GameStops, and people, give us our money back.
I mean, I think whenever you have a lot of hype, there's always going to be some disappointment, and there's a lot of hype for Fallout 4. So
yeah, that is the double-edged sword of having a successful franchise, that really no matter what you do, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that feel it's imperfect and they're enraged that reviewers are only giving your game a 9.5 instead of a 10, and oh, you nerfed the 9mm pistol, and why aren't there 10 different models of 9mm pistol and 10 different models of 380 pistol and 10 different 9mm submachine guns? And if you look at the mod community, there are people that put in 150 kinds of guns that all shoot the same kind of ammunition with slightly different stats, and not that we're making fun of the lovely people that take time out of their day to put the effort in to make the gun mods, but there are going to be people that no matter how good Fallout 4 is, they're going to be outraged that some feature was altered or changed or added in. And I don't really have any thoughtful conclusion to that, except that I feel sorry for the poor bastards making the game, because they are going to get flack no matter what they do. Alright, but all the speculation about what it's going to be like is going to slowly diminish over the coming months, because every new convention that happens, every new press event that's coming up in the next few months, we're going to learn a little more about the game. And the next big press moment is going to be Bethesda's own QuakeCon, which is coming up in a couple weeks as of the time of this recording. And the lucky bastards at QuakeCon are getting an exclusive demo of the game. So people who are live streaming it won't be able to find out what this is. We're going to have to watch the shaky cell phone footage that's going to be put up on Vine 6 seconds after it airs. So I am quite intrigued by the possibility of exclusive material being dropped just for the con attendees, and I'm quite envious of them.
I'm not so convinced that the demo is going to be all that revealing, any more revealing than, say, the actual on-stage pre-rendered trailers were, because they're definitely going to be putting forth the most developed and the least plot revealing parts of the game for people to mess around in. So, but I'm so jealous that I don't get to get my hands and kind of actually see how the game feels.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll find out a lot about it only minutes afterwards, thanks to Instagram. So those of you who are going to be there, don't pay attention to the warning about keeping your phones off during the presentation. So those of us who actually can't be at QuakeCon, we can still tide ourselves over by playing Fallout Shelter, which just had its first big update. And by big update, it has a feature now that takes screenshots. So I guess the couple of people out there that don't know holding down power button and home button takes a screenshot, and if you don't have Instagram on your iPhone, then great, this is a feature that's just awesome. So a few things that I've been running into as a obsessive player who's been playing it since the minute it came out. My vault has reached its maximum population. I have at least one of every possible room. So now I've got these 200 vault dwellers, and I keep earning new lunch boxes, which can potentially give you extra vault dwellers. So I need a way to very quickly kill off my excess population in the vault. And, there's a feature where you can just take, people you don't like, and you can drop them outside the vault, and, they'll go foraging, and eventually they'll die. But I'm also running into the trouble that my vault dwellers have now leveled up so much that I can take a character, drop them in the wasteland, with no weapons, no armor, no health or radiation stuff, and they will actually survive. They'll kill bad guys, take the bad guys' weapons and armor, and then 16 hours later, they're running around with this huge inventory. And I was trying to murder them, but now I can't do that. And
you just made them stronger.
Yes, so it's just like the actual Fallout story where you send this sorry bastard off to die in the wasteland and they end up thriving. So there was this one vault in New Vegas where part of their culture is based around a sacrificial chamber where one person is chosen to sacrifice themselves for the better of the whole community. So, Bethesda, if you're listening, I demand some sort of ritual sacrifice chamber where I can drop in my excess population and gain some kind of benefit from them. Make the rest of the vault happy because they think that this person has sacrificed themselves for community benefit. or I know that you're an enthusiastic cannibal yourself, Austin, as we learned on last week's podcast. So, Bethesda, if you're looking to appeal to a very specific but enthusiastic group of fans, you could have a little chamber added on in an update that lets you, cannibalize vault dwellers that are for their excess population to produce additional food. So let's go on to our weekly segment of artsy smartsy stuff. So artsy smartsy stuff is where we talk about the film and literary influences behind the Fallout games, or films and books that we think might have influence for Fallout 4. And we're in the middle of our 3-week event of covering Charlton Heston movies. Last week we did Soylent Green and Make Room, Make Room. This week we're going to talk about The Omega Man and the novella that inspired it, I Am Legend. So, Austin, tell us a little bit about The Omega Man.
The Omega Man, which Omega is symbolically usually associated with death or last, so you think of it as The Last Man, is a movie wherein Charlton Heston is the sole survivor of some sort of strange pseudo-zombie apocalypse, though actually it's probably more an analogous to a vampire apocalypse, wherein he has not been afflicted by this disease that everyone else that we ever meet, for the most part, has been afflicted by, which makes them want to kill and eat other people. And they only come out at night. And so he has this fortified condo in which he lives. and he goes out during the day to scavenge for supplies and stuff, and at night he basically tries to drown out the noise of the vampire folk that are trying to get him, and also defend himself against their attempts to acquire him. And I Am Legend is actually almost the same thing.
So we don't want to give away too many spoilers, but I Am Legend has been adapted into several movies, and each of them addresses the story in a slightly different way. In Omega Man, well, you'll have to see the movie yourself to find out what happens and read the book. But it was adapted into several others. The Will Smith movie, I Am Legend, is a very modernized update on this, where the bad guys are kind of vampires, kind of zombies. It incorporates a lot of modern zombie fiction into it. And there were two endings to it. One ending is very similar to the ending of the book, and the ending that was used in the theatrical release is more of a happy ending that's not quite the way the book turned out. Austin, thoughts on the Will Smith interpretation?
I hate the original ending so much. I have such strong feelings about the original ending. But I actually liked it, though. Like, for the most part, I thought that it incorporated a lot of the element. I saw the movie before I read the book, but I liked it before I read the book, and after I read the book, I was like, I kind of like that this is a more modern interpretation of that story. Though again, the ending felt a little bit like a cop-out, but it also had the elements of having a base and surviving in a defending them yourself against the zombie vampire type things, the weird creatures that come out at night.
And there was a Vincent Price adaptation. That's chronologically the first movie that was based on it. That came out in, I think, 1964. It was a very low-budget Italian movie where a lot of the English dialogue is dubbed over Italian actors. And the budget is so low that it's very clear they obviously spent all their money getting Vincent Price and then just had to make do with whatever was left. But if you do like horror movies, or if you like the novel, then definitely check out the Vincent Price one, which is called The Last Man Alive. Oh, and for extra fun, the original tagline for the Charlton Heston movie was, "The last man alive is not alone." All right, so a common theme amongst the book and all of its movie adaptations is the idea that the hero defends a base at night from swarms of bad guys, and during the day scavenges for supplies to fortify their base. So Austin, tell us a little bit about how that's going to relate to Fallout 4.
Well, in Fallout 4, they've clearly been advocating this new idea of being able to build settlements and build up your own base in an actual, almost Minecraftian way, though obviously with some restrictions on it, and that there would be assaults on your base. So obviously, I don't think I'd be very surprised if there was some sort of ending to the game where you end up one of the few living survivors, like if you actually end up nuking by mistake the area. So I don't think we'll actually get to that. You're a hermit by no choice at all. But they have talked about raiders and I'm guessing probably some super mutants and feral ghouls, and that you need to go out into the world and in the way that their crafting system is set up is that all that junk that kind of just existed as set dressings in the previous Fallout games is going to be you're going to be able to break it down to more fundamental parts and use that to build your base. So there's going to be reason to go out and acquire things at a time that is presumably safe, or safer anyway, which would probably be daytime, and then you would be coming back and using the things that you've gathered to fortify against any sort of intrusion. So that is very much something that existed in, at least the movies I've seen, Omega Man and I Am Legend, and in the book, where he was frequently trying to find beans and stuff.
Right. And there is an existing mod for Fallout New Vegas that removes all the quest line and just makes you have to go out and survive in a much less forgiving wasteland. So that's something to check out. I can't remember the name of it, but I'm sure people will mention it in the comment section. And also, if you think back to Red Dead Redemption, they released their Undead Nightmare, which it didn't have so much to do with fortifying bases, but it did create this system where the free-roaming wasteland was overrun with zombies. Different towns would get overtaken by zombies unless you were there to save the day or to chase away the zombies. So it's possible that there will be an alternate mode added onto Fallout 4 that you can go into this full survival, free-roaming world and not necessarily deal with plots and quests, but just run around, saving bases and towns. And it's also possible that'll be an endgame experience. You reach the final quest, and then afterwards, just here's a crapload of feral ghouls that are going to run amok forever. Alright, so all those themes of defending a base and fighting off the swarms of bad guys at night, that all comes back to I Am Legend and all of the films adapted from it. So next week on Artsy Smartsy Stuff, we're going to talk about another Charlton Heston science fiction classic, Planet of the Apes. And if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to blow the spoiler, but we are going to talk about it next week. So if you haven't seen the original Planet of the Apes, you got to run out and see it now so we can talk about it next week without blowing anything. All right, and now, here's an important message from the men of science at Big Mountain Research and Development Center.
The dog is man's best friend, and the gun is his other best friend. But what if someday man could experience the love of a loyal hound and the happiness of a warm gun simultaneously? That day is at hand, thanks to the power of science! America's greatest minds have collaborated on the Fluid Intelligence Dog Ordinance, FIDO, a miracle of ballistic zoology that combines floppy-eared alertness with the stopping power of a .44 Magnum. Take that, commie spies. Take that, bullies. Take that, Richie Marcus.
Alright, and welcome back. Now it's time for a segment that we call Viewer Questions. The first question this week is from @NickLankow. How will playing as a girl in Fallout 4 be handled? Will the girl then be the vet or play as the vet's wife? So in the E3 video, we saw the character creation system where no matter what gender you pick, your character is going to be part of this wholesome couple. And on the character creation screen, you can create yourself, you can create your spouse, and we were told whatever character you are creating last at the mirror and exit the mirror as, that'll be the character that you play and the other character will be your spouse. Now, the video that we saw at E3, the dialogue played out so that it seems like the husband is a veteran and the wife is the wife of a veteran with no specific statement that she is a veteran as well or that she might be a veteran as well. So this is something that Bethesda needs to clarify, because in previous Fallout games, choosing gender would have slight differences on the way the game plays out, but not huge differences like whether or not your character is a combat vet or a stay-at-home housewife. So I would like to think that no matter what gender you choose, your character is going to be some important veteran, and that the video that we saw just happened to play out that way. So Austin, what are your thoughts on this?
I think we're going to have to wait until the game is released to really find that out, because they're not super into revealing plot information. As they want to reveal as little as possible, it seems, so they're probably not going to answer any direct questions. And so unless we get an opportunity to look at the character creation of a female character, we're probably not going to get to know that. It's conceivable. I just went over the Project Anchorage characters just to see if there were any women in it, because I had played through it relatively recently, but I just couldn't even remember because most people are covered head to toe in stuff. Anyway, there are mechanics. There are lady mechanics called grease monkeys in Project Anchorage. So it's conceivable that they met during the war for Alaska, as both being military. So Alaska was reclaimed actually not that long before the Great War happened. It was in January 10th, but it could be, it could be that they're on leave. It could be any number of things. There could be any number of reasons why they're not currently fighting. The kid does appear to be older than a baby would be between January and October. But so either one is possible, that she's a stay-at-home housewife, or somehow they have a pretty similar backstory. I kind of lean toward her being a housewife, just because they're going for that. It seems to be that they're going for that kind of 1950s traditional nuclear family dynamic.
So those of you who have played Fallout a bunch but have never tried playing as the opposite gender, there's a lot of fun little twists that will happen depending on what gender you play as. And in Fallout New Vegas, the first time I played it, I went through as like a femme fatale, and there's actually a major plot point that you can circumvent if you do play a seductive woman. So you can go straight to, I don't want to blow the plot for people who for some reason are listening to this but haven't played it yet, but you can go and you can kill a major character and get around a very large section of the game just by using your sex appeal. So it's a fun option, and the first time I played through, it was my first instinct to seduce a person and beat them to death with my bare hands. And so I missed out on a good 20 hours of quests just by running through and doing this, and then my second playthrough was a very different experience. So if you haven't gone back and played through the old games, or if it's been a while, do it using an entirely different build with a different gender, and you're liable to have a different experience. And hopefully Fallout 4 will have a little bit of that, where it's slightly different but not significantly different. All right, and I'm very happy to learn that the zombified former Beatle George Harrison is following us, apparently. Our next viewer question comes from @GeorgeH. 6373188. I've been wondering, do you think there will be hardcore mode for Fallout 4? So I definitely think there will be something like a hardcore mode. For those of you who haven't played New Vegas, or if it's been a while since you've compared New Vegas to 3, hardcore mode added in things like food and water, and sleep became very important, and radiation was handled a little differently, as were injuries and medicine and companion death. So with Fallout 4, there will almost certainly be something like that lets you experience a more realistic wasteland where, food does more than heal, and water does more than heal, and, not sleeping has some tangible effect. And we've seen little hints about this because of the way that radiation is handled. The higher your radiation level is, the lower your maximum health is, and I wouldn't be surprised if they included something like that for food and water and sleep. Austin, your thoughts?
I'm just hoping that I would be amazed if they didn't have something like that, since they obviously Bethesda wasn't the developer behind New Vegas, but it did seem to get some traction. I would really like to see the mechanics refined from Fallout New Vegas. So. All
right, so you longtime fans may remember the period between Fallout 3 arrived and New Vegas arrived. There were a bunch of mods that did add in a real hardcore feature for having to eat and sleep and drink and deal with your radiation, and those would let you actually select how extreme they were, and in those early mods, it was really rough. You would have to pretty much eat and drink and sleep just like a real person would, but within the frame of the game's time period. So with yeah.
Time passes so quickly in those games.
Yeah, so, you would have to eat a lot. And in New Vegas, they were pretty wimpy. It seemed like the food that I just ate to clear up space in my inventory would, more than suffice to keep me from dying of hunger. And so hopefully Fallout 4 will give you more modes of extreme hardcore, nutrition and sleep and hydration. All right, and now it's time for a segment that we call Irresponsible Speculations. And we would like you, the viewers, to have your own irresponsible speculations. Please throw them out on Twitter or in the comment section below. And our first irresponsible speculation from a viewer comes from @Amizare, Amizare. The mysterious stranger becomes an actual companion.
I love this idea so much.
Definitely has to happen. We've already confirmed that the mysterious stranger perk is going to be back. But I speculate that you will be able to purchase a Day 1 DLC for $39.99 that gives you the mysterious stranger as a permanent companion, and he will fire 6 shots from a 44 Magnum into one of your enemies every time you enter VATS.
Contingent on that is that it's going to, the only way that you can actually have him as a companion is if you have the game on the easiest difficulty setting, because then it's like that extra boost that you need to really make the game easy. And in fact, it'll be like they'll have normal, easy, very easy, and then the immortal companion who kills everyone in like 6 shots. It's going to be the right below it.
Baby's first apocalypse. Okay, so Austin, personal speculations of your own.
I don't actually have a personal speculation this week, but I was going to bring up this kind of global speculation that's kind of taking on a life of its own, that is based on a Telegraph article, which is it's an interview with Todd Howard, so it has some weight to it, and about 4 or 5 paragraphs in, there's this sentence that says, "The game opens in Boston in an alternate 2075." And people have been taking that and speculating about, and it's not in quotes. It doesn't say Todd Howard says this. It doesn't say Pete Hines says this. So there's some concern that it's a typo, which is what I think it is. But there's also some conceivability that there's something to that. And I was wondering if what you thought might happen in that, what if it were to be opening in 2075, what would be happening between then and the Great War?
Well, because this is irresponsible speculations, I'm just going to say it can't possibly be a typo. The game is definitely starting in 2075. We're going to get a whole segment where you fight through Alaska in your power armor. It's going to be a massive 8, 10, 12-hour segment. It's the prologue to the game, where you're essentially playing through the equivalent of like 2 or 3 Battlefield or Call of Duty single-player campaigns in a row. You will play the guy that defeats the Chinese army, liberates Anchorage, and then after that 12-hour introduction, credits roll, we go to the wholesome little hometown where you're back on leave with your wife or husband, and then we get to that little segment that we saw at E3.
I feel like minus the incredible longevity, like long period of time you're saying there, that actually would be pretty cool. I loved Project Anchorage. I thought that was a lot of fun. It'd be fun to actually do a non-simulated version of liberating Alaska, I think. Yeah, sure. Why not? It's not a typo. Quote me on it. Austin Horrigan, 2015, says it's not a typo.
All right, and if you listeners have any irresponsible speculations of your own or legitimate questions, you can feel free to send them to me or Austin or ShoddyCast. You can tweet me at Charles Battersby with no Y on the end. Austin, where can they cyberstalk you?
They can tweet at me at AR Horrigan or tweet at ShoddyCast. We need a few more followers, why not? And they can also write on the Facebook page. On the best place to do it would probably be actually in the comment section of the video, but do it anywhere and we may see it.
All right, and yes, the comment section here, anything we said wrong, feel free to point it out. When we were talking about Fallout being like Call of Duty, we forgot to mention the Project Nevada mod, which is, it was on my little list of things to mention. So I promise you, dear viewers, I was going to mention that, and we had such lively conversation that I forgot to actually mention that specific mod.
I was gonna say, you don't need to give them permission to tell us that we got stuff wrong. They'll tell us.
All right, and on that, thank you for listening to GNN. I'm Charles Battersby.
And I'm Austin Horrigan.
And join us here every Thursday for another weekly episode. And don't forget to catch ShoddyCast Fallout Lore the Storyteller. New episodes every Friday, right up until the launch of Fallout 4. And don't forget to tune in GNN every weekday after school for more adventures of Dova Kid, the littlest dragonborn.